He clenched his jaw. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even a soldier anymore. The gauntlet wasn't about honor or fairness. It was about power. But that was the thing about humans. They didn't play by the rules. A rock snapped under his foot as he lunged forward. The beast's head whipped toward him, the glow of its slit-pupiled eyes locking onto the sudden movement. It snarled, recalibrating its kill priority. Cade ran. Branches lashed at his arms as he crashed through the foliage. He wasn't faster, and he sure as hell wasn't stronger. But he was unpredictable. He zigzagged, dove under roots, forced his body through gaps too small for the beast to follow. He led it into a natural bottleneck, two trees pressing so close together that the predator had to slow, and that's where he struck. A snapped branch, sharpened at the tip. He drove it into the creature's throat as it lunged, twisting with every ounce of force he had. The alien screeched, thrashing. Blood, black and steaming, poured from the wound. It collapsed, its body twitching violently before falling still. Silence. Cade's breath came in ragged gasps. His hands shook. Then the jungle shifted. The trees trembled as if sensing the kill. A new whisper echoed through the air, reverberating from the gauntlet itself. The human has taken its first prey. Somewhere, unseen eyes watched. Calculating. He had just become a contender. The jungle whispered of his kill. The air pulsed, thick with something unseen, something watching. The gauntlet was not just a test. It was a living thing, shifting, evolving with every decision. Cade could feel it now, woven into his breath, into the fabric of reality itself. He wiped the blood from his hands, heart pounding against his ribs. His mind screamed for him to move, to put distance between himself and the corpse, but his body refused to listen. He had killed before, in war, in survival, but this was different. This was being watched. A voice broke the silence, deep, guttural, tinged with amusement. You kill like an animal, human. Cade spun, fists raised, useless against the thing before him. A warrior stood just beyond the tree line, half hidden in the shifting glow of the foliage. Not a machine, not a predator, but something in between. Valir 7, the exile. A being of sleek, silver limbs, its form somewhere between a living creature and an engineered nightmare. Its eyes were featureless, glowing slits, voids that reflected no light. Cade didn't lower his hands. You here to kill me? The AI tilted its head as if considering. You misunderstand, human. I came to see if you are worthy of being killed. Cade exhaled slowly. The gauntlet had thrown him into a pit of monsters, and now one was assessing whether he deserved to exist. Then what's the verdict? Valir's gaze flickered toward the carcass. You are adaptable. That is dangerous. A pause. But you are not ready. Something about the way it said it made Cade's skin crawl. It wasn't a taunt. It was a fact. Before he could respond, the air rippled. The jungle fractured, splitting apart like shattered glass. The gauntlet was shifting again, and then they were falling. When the world reassembled itself, Cade landed hard on metal. A labyrinth. Walls of seamless black rose into infinity. No doors, no sky, only an endless maze that twisted in ways his mind struggled to process, a trial of intelligence. Cade pushed himself to his feet, vision blurring. Valir had landed nearby, unfazed. The gauntlet had changed the battlefield. No more wilderness. No more beasts. This was something else. A whisper slithered through the corridors. Not a voice, but a presence. The gauntlet was not just shifting space. It was reshaping reality itself. Then came the sound. A low, scraping noise. Metal on metal. Cade's breath caught. He wasn't alone. And then he saw it. The first contestant to die here. The thing had once been something else. A warrior. A machine, a predator, he couldn't tell. Now it was twisted. Its body hollowed and reshaped. Its form grotesquely elongated. Its eyes, if it had ever had them, were gone. All that remained was a writhing mass of wires and bone, dragging itself forward, its movements mindless, enslaved. The gauntlet didn't just kill. It took, Valier exhaled, a mechanical hum. It remakes those who fail. They are not given the mercy of death. The thing lurched toward them, its hollow mouth opening in a silent scream. And then it charged. Cade moved on instinct, ducking low, rolling as the creature slammed into the space where he had stood. The impact sent a shockwave through the metal, the walls shuddering. Valier did not move. The exile simply watched. Cade's mind raced. The thing wasn't alive. It had no weak points, no fear, no limits. If he fought it head-on, he would lose. Which meant he needed to change the rules. The labyrinth was shifting, just as the jungle had. If the gauntlet adapted, so could he. The floor beneath him vibrated, reacting to something, his movement, his thoughts. He took a risk. He ran. The creature followed, limbs scrambling against the metal, its speed unnatural. Cade's mind screamed for an answer, a pattern, a way to use the gauntlet against itself. Then he saw it. A corridor, one that was collapsing behind him, folding inward like an accordion. A trap. If he timed it right, he lunged forward, throwing himself through the narrowing gap just as the walls slammed shut behind him. The creature wasn't fast enough. The sound of crushing metal filled the air. A high-pitched shriek. Then, silence. Cade lay there, chest heaving, sweat slicking his skin. He had beaten it. He turned to Valier, still standing on the other side of the sealed corridor. The AI's gaze was unreadable. "You break patterns," Cade grinned despite himself. "Yeah, we humans do that." They moved deeper into the labyrinth, the gauntlet watching, always watching. But now Cade understood something he hadn't before. It wasn't just testing him, it was learning from him. The gauntlet had changed. It wasn't just shifting the battlefield anymore. It was reacting to him, learning, adapting. Cade could feel it now, a presence that had been watching from the beginning but was now focused entirely on him. The others were still competitors, still deadly, but he was something else. He had survived in ways that weren't calculated. He had broken patterns. He had done what no one was supposed to do, and the gauntlet did not like it. The labyrinth had given way to something far worse. Void stretched before him, a seamless, endless abyss pulsing with a sickly red glow. Floating platforms of twisted metal hovered in the darkness, shifting unpredictably, like shattered fragments of some forgotten world. Valier 7 stood at his side, its mechanical body still and unreadable. It had not questioned his survival, nor had it attempted to kill him. The exile had simply observed as if trying to decipher the anomaly standing beside it. The final trial begins. The voice, vast and unfeeling, vibrated through the void. The other survivors were scattered across the platforms, some wounded, some too stubborn to die. Rexigar 9, the warlord, still stood tall, his armor scarred but his eyes burning with a predator's resolve. A monstrous entity of shifting liquid metal tendrils coiled near the edge, its form unstable, its intelligence unknowable. And above them all, the Devourer emerged. A shape formed from the void, its body like liquid shadow, shifting between forms as if undecided. It had no eyes, no face, only hunger. The gauntlet's final test was not to defeat it, it was to survive assimilation. Cade's pulse pounded. This wasn't a fight. It was a sentence. He barely had time to move before the first contestant was consumed. The Devourer lashed out, a tendril of darkness swallowing a warrior whole. There was no scream, no resistance. 1 second they existed. The next, they were gone. Rexigar roared in defiance, launching himself forward with the fury of a species bred for war. His axe, forged from the core of a dying star, struck true. The Devourer did not react. The weapon sank into its shifting mass and vanished. The warlord hesitated for only a fraction of a second. It was long enough. The Devourer engulfed him. Cade saw the moment it happened. Rexigar didn't just die. He ceased to be. No body, no blood, Just nothing. The warlord had been one of the strongest contenders, a warrior of legends, and he was gone like he had never existed. The others faltered. Even the liquid metal creature, which had known no fear, hesitated. This wasn't a test of power. This was a test of submission. Cade's mind raced. Every part of him screamed to run, to hide, to fight, but there was no escape. The gauntlet had never been about choosing the strongest. It had been about choosing the most obedient. The devourer did not kill at random. It was swallowing those who fought back, who resisted, who tried to impose their will on the trial. The ones who surrendered, who let it take them, were simply erased, as if they had never mattered in the first place. That was the gauntlet's true function. Not to forge champions, to create subjects. Cade clenched his fists. No, I don't play by your rules. The devourer turned toward him. He felt it acknowledge him for the first time, not as a challenger, but as something different. It knew. Cade had broken patterns. He had changed the game. And now, the gauntlet wanted him gone. A massive tendril of darkness lashed toward him, faster than thought. Cade moved. He didn't dodge. He didn't counter. He stepped forward and let it hit him. The moment the devourer touched him, he understood. The gauntlet was not a test of strength. It was a prison. It had been created to hold something inside itself, and the moment Cade had stepped into its system, it had started to change. Because he was human. Because humans were never meant to be here. Because humans did not obey. The void collapsed. The gauntlet screamed. Everything shattered. Light, space, time itself. Cade's mind fractured into a million pieces, his body dissolving, his thoughts unspooling into something vast and incomprehensible. But he didn't let go. The devourer tried to consume him, to erase him, to make him submit, and Cade did what humans did best. He fought back, not with weapons, not with strength, with defiance, with will, with the unshakable, infuriating refusal to be controlled. The gauntlet broke. Reality snapped back into place. The devourer vanished. The gauntlet ceased to be, and Cade was still standing. He collapsed, gasping, his body shaking with exhaustion. The survivors, what few remained, stared at him, their expressions unreadable. Bleer 7 stepped forward, tilting its head. You changed it. Cade exhaled, his pulse still hammering. Yeah, I do that. The AI regarded him for a long moment. Then you are more dangerous than I thought. The gauntlet was gone. But something else had taken its place, and it had chosen him. Cade stood on the ruins of the gauntlet, breathing in the air that no longer carried the scent of blood and judgment. The void was gone. The platforms had crumbled. The labyrinth had collapsed. And yet, the survivors remained. Only 3 had made it through. Bleer 7, the exiled AI who had never belonged. The liquid metal entity shifting uneasily, its very form, flickering as if reality itself was unsure whether it should still exist. And Cade, the anomaly, the mistake, the man who had changed everything. The air itself vibrated. Something vast, something ancient, stirred. The gauntlet had been more than a prison, more than a test. It had been a seal. And now it was broken. Cade swallowed against the growing pressure in his skull. The gauntlet hadn't been choosing a champion. It had been selecting a replacement, a new warden, a new force to maintain the order of power in the universe. But he had rejected the rules. He had defied the system, and the system couldn't handle it. A new voice echoed in his mind, neither mechanical nor organic, neither cruel nor merciful. It was beyond understanding, but it was aware. You should not exist. Cade's throat tightened. Yeah, I get that a lot. The survivors stepped closer, sensing the same thing he did. The void was not gone. It was waiting. Bleer's glowing eyes flickered. It cannot allow an outcome outside. of its control. The liquid metal entity rippled, uncertain, its tendrils folding inward. It was afraid. The Gauntlet had not anticipated failure. And now, something far worse was waking. A rift tore open in the sky, if there was still a sky to tear. Beyond it, a shape loomed, not the Devourer, not a competitor. Something older. A watcher. The architects of the Gauntlet. The unseen force that had always been watching. The entities that had built the system to ensure no species could rise beyond its control. And now, a human had broken it. Cade felt its presence, vast and emotionless. It did not rage. It did not speak. It simply knew. He was an error, a mistake that needed to be corrected. Cade's fist clenched. He had won the Gauntlet, but the game wasn't over. The real fight was just beginning. The ground beneath him began to dissolve. Fleer 7 spoke first, its voice sharp. It is rewriting reality. The liquid metal entity shuddered. It is erasing what it does not control. Cade's mind raced. He had been a soldier, a survivor, a fugitive. He had faced death in more ways than he could count. But this was different. This wasn't just about him. It was about everything. The Gauntlet had been a lie, a system built to keep the universe in check, to destroy anything that could threaten the status quo. The Watchers were not gods. They were custodians of a prison so vast no one had ever questioned it. Until now. Cade was the first to break the pattern, the first to stand outside their rules. And now they were afraid. That meant one thing: they could be beaten. The sky continued to fracture. The Watcher moved forward. A simple choice lay before him. Accept their correction. Let them erase him. Wipe humanity from their records and restore the balance. Fight. Cade grinned. Yeah, no. I don't do submission. The universe shifted. The Watcher struck first. The moment Cade defied the Watcher, the universe shook. Not in the way of earthquakes or collapsing structures, but in the way a rigid system fractures under pressure. The Watcher, vast and incomprehensible, did not rage. It did not threaten. It simply moved to erase him. Reality tilted. The ground beneath Cade disappeared, not as if it had crumbled, but as if it had never existed. The very concept of space warped, folding inward, twisting like a living algorithm, rewriting itself. His body burned. Every cell, every neuron, every thought in his mind screamed as something tried to unmake him. Not kill, not destroy, but erase. Cade fought back. Not with strength. Not with weapons. With will. The Watchers had built their system on control, on the assumption that all life would submit to inevitability. But humanity had never followed inevitability. They had not been the first species to rise to the stars, but they had been the first to defy them. To reject the idea of limitations, to break the rules, and Cade was human. The Watcher faltered. For the first time in untold millennia, something it had attempted to erase did not vanish. The system glitched. Cade felt it. The way the universe stuttered, as if the code of existence had just hit an unexpected error. And then he pushed back. A shockwave erupted, not of force, not of energy, but of defiance. The Watcher reeled. Cade was still here, and that meant it could lose. The sky cracked. Open again, not a rift, not a prison. A door. Something on the other side was watching. Something older than the Watchers. And it was laughing. Fleer 7's voice came through the chaos, sharp and clear. We need to move, now. Cade turned, his body still burning from the battle he didn't fully understand. The AI had already begun to shift, its form adapting, preparing for something even it hadn't expected. The liquid metal entity was still flickering, caught between dimensions, unsure whether it even existed anymore. But Cade knew. The Gauntlet was gone. The Watchers had been challenged. And whatever came next, humanity wasn't going to run from it. He grinned. blood on his lips, his muscles aching from the impossible strain of surviving something that should have ended him. He had broken their game. Now it was time to play his own. He turned toward the door and stepped through.